Alright, so the assignment given to us by Mr. Astall, our wonderful English teacher, was to construct 3 laws of humanity, which could kind of oversee how humanity works or the best like they can be at one time, based off of the 3 laws of robotics. But, you know, originally the assignment wasn't to base them off of the 3 laws of robotics. So here, the big idea that we kind of came to like a crossroad, right? Where all 4 of us came to the same question, where if the law of robotics are meant to emulate the perfect human, then how can we improve upon them? And we know that it's meant to emulate the perfect human because of a couple examples we see in the book. For example, in chapter 8, Stephen Byerly, who is someone running for a political position, is like favored by the human populace for certain reasons. Well, one of those reasons we can assume is that he holds all the traits that, you know, us humans would like to see in a leader. So we know that these laws can perfectly emulate a robot to be the best human that there can be. But will they transition well to a human if we were to just bring all these old laws to the humans? So that's basically what we're trying to explore, to see if, you know, if they transition well.
So the first thing we did was analyze the first law of robotics, which is a robot must not injure a human through inaction or allow a human to come to harm. So a great example of this would be on chapter 1, page 17, when the little girl is almost hit by a tractor. And Robbie, the robot, jumps in and stops the tractor using his hand and saves her, therefore stopping, you know, her from dying and coming to harm. This law was also meant to stop things like war and the like through robotics, because obviously it'd be a lot harder to kill a robot than a person. So the first law of humanity would be a very simple change, and a human must not injure another human or through inaction cause another human to come to harm. This would get rid of the need. Things like violence and certain crimes would become non-existent, because harm also covers things like financial harm and emotional harm. It would also help to, maybe they'd make better counselors, maybe they would definitely make better bankers and the like.
So if there'd be one law that would be lost in translation from robots to humans, this would be it. Because the second law of robotics basically states that you must listen to your master. Although, you know, if everybody's equal, there is no master, and no one's going to listen to each other since they're all humans and they're all on the same basically social level or economic level. So it's going to be trouble like differentiating and like who is in charge and things like that. So like for example, in chapter 4, we see that Cutie is a robot who kind of goes rogue, I guess, and like thinks up this theology because his masters, Donovan Powell, are basically below him, he believes, and that he's higher than them, and he doesn't want to believe that they created him, and rather that like a single entity, which is more powerful than him, created him. So we fear that like something like that would happen if we were to just implement this into human society. So we created this second law of humanity. A human must progress and maintain society to ensure expansion of human society as long as it doesn't breach the first law. So essentially, if we were to like apply this to the real world and what we do already, like forming governmental systems and like being able to regulate ourselves and put our like a job in society and be able to essentially further the human agenda scientifically, diplomatically, culturally, and pretty much covering all the bases.
Alright, so this is the third law of robotics. Third law is just that a robot must protect itself as long as it doesn't come into interference with the first and second law. An example of this would be on page 23 in chapter 2, where a robot called Speedy was sent out to go get selenium to power the fusion cores for the Mars base. And the danger from getting the selenium was too much, so he had to leave. And it would create an equilibrium with the first and second law. So we created the third law of humanity, and this is a human must protect and enjoy its own existence as long as it doesn't conflict with the first and second law. This will eliminate a lot of problems like war and poverty, and it will expand the existence of the human race and the community if everybody's just happy and everybody's protecting their own existence, because they also protect themselves.
So in the end, as Jake stated before, these laws were meant to emulate the perfect human in the perfect society. But in other books, such as the short story Harrison Bergeron, or maybe even The Giver, we can see that sometimes these utopian societies, they fall apart and don't tend to work. That's why these laws, it's difficult to prove whether or not these laws will actually work when they're implemented into society. And for these laws to actually work, they would have to change here and there to fit the society's needs. So that's the basic premises of our presentation about creating these 3 laws of humanity that can govern humanity without having any sort of higher power to control them.
So if we had to come to a conclusion, essentially, we can only think about this in theory. In regards to human society, we can only pretend that we're implementing these laws. We don't actually know how they would work out, because there could be ticks to them, like how there's ticks to all the laws in the book. Throughout each chapter, they go through different problems that maybe they take the law too literally, or maybe the law just doesn't all around suit the creation right. So if we implement this in human society, there could be different ticks and issues that we can't work out, but we can always change the laws, hopefully. But these are what we think would fit the society the best.
Furthermore, the problem with adding on and changing the laws may end up you might give them an inch and they'll take a mile, meaning they might start changing a law and say, oh, it's okay to change this law, and this law, and this law, and this law, and so on and so forth, until it's basically, there's no laws anymore.
All right, well, thank you for checking out our presentation. Bye.
Peace, guys.